During the earthquake, I grabbed Ling Jing as he was about to rush in to save his beloved. And in doing so, I lost a leg. Later, on the day Ling Jing and I got married, that girl jumped to her death because her face had been disfigured. But he said nothing. For decades. He helped me with my rehabilitation despite my leg injury. On our 10th anniversary, he pushed Mu Ho was pregnant at the time into the middle of the street. Before turning to leave, he asked me, Chin Romji, do you understand what it feels like to be completely alone and helpless? It wasn't until the car ran me over that I realized how much he had always hated me. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back at the moment the house collapsed, and I let go of his hand. Ling Jing, run. As the load-bearing wall collapsed, Ling Jing, standing right in front of me, resolutely shook off my hand. My footsteps, which had been about to rush toward him, faltered, and I looked at him through the thick cloud of dust. In a past life, I pulled him back with all my might and used my body to shield him from the collapsing wall. When the sharp stones rained down, the excruciating pain made me lose my senses for a moment. Thinking I was about to die, I mustered my last ounce of strength and whispered in his ear, Ling Jing, I hope you find happiness. Later, when I woke up in the hospital and saw that my right leg was only half there, I couldn't quite put my finger on how I felt. When I realized I would never again be able to continue the sport of fencing that I loved so dearly, I broke down and cried in despair. But Ling Jing's mother came to see me, and they knelt on the ground, begging me not to cry, saying they wouldn't get up until I stopped crying. That boy, who was always so cheerful and outgoing, stood helplessly beside me, wiping away my tears with trembling hands. Gigi, let's get married. I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. In that moment, a profound love briefly smoothed over the bottomless chasms within my heart. I had always thought that the intense gaze Ling Jing directed at me was a love he had awakened within me, but it wasn't until the tire rolled over my lower abdomen that I realized it was nothing but utter hatred. No. I have to go save Qiuqiu. She hasn't come out yet. Ling Jing's harsh shout interrupted my recollections. He waved his hands, signaling me not to approach him. As I looked at his still young and innocent face, the past 10 years came flooding back to me. I remember how he accompanied me through my rehabilitation sessions time and time again, and how he would wrap his strong arms around me and hold me tight whenever I fell. But I also remember that on our 10th wedding anniversary, he pushed me with my prosthetic leg removed into the middle of the street and whispered in my ear, Chin Romji, do you remember what day it is? My Xiao, it's been 10 years since she passed away. She had already accepted my confession, and things were just starting to look up. I want you to experience what it's like to be all alone and helpless. His voice was so full of hatred, like a sharp knife piercing my heart. The wheels of a speeding car rolled over my lower abdomen, and bright red blood stained the prenatal checkup notice in my pocket. That was the surprise I gave Ling Jing for our 10th anniversary. Don't come over here. Ling Jing turned and ran upstairs, glancing back at me as he ran. He thought I would stop him at all costs. But this time, I'll never do it again. After the rescue team found me, they picked me up in their vehicle. Ling Jing and Yu Xiaoqiu, however, have vanished without a trace. I don't know if he ran into her or if he managed to save the girl he loved. I closed my eyes. Ling Jing's words from his previous life still echoed in my ears. Life and death are predestined, and wealth and honor are in the hands of heaven. What right do you have to think you're qualified to interfere with my life or death? I love Qiuqiu, and I'd gladly die for her. What right do you have to stop me? It's a shame that our 10-year friendship as childhood sweethearts doesn't hold a candle to the 1 month Yu Xiaoqiu has known him. Once a motivated and ambitious student, he skipped an exam because of a single remark she made, thereby missing out on all the awards. He said he had never met anyone who suited him so well, but she never stops to wonder whether someone who is so perfectly suited to him could even exist. The ambulance took us to the hospital for an examination, where I saw Ling Jing's mother, looking haggard. She took my hand. Where's Ling Jing? I shook my head. I don't know. Aren't you two together? How could you not save him? I was at a loss for words. In my previous life, Ling's mother was initially grateful to me, but later she repeatedly brought up my disability, insisting that it was my good fortune that her son had accepted me. She even secretly set him up with girlfriends on more than one occasion. Whenever I had an outburst, she would clutch her chest and pretend to be sick, and Ling Jing would step in front of her to shut me up. He wants to go in and save people. I can't stop him. I looked at Ling's mother. I didn't feel like saying anything more. Ling Jing lost his father at a young age, and his mother raised him on her own, with graduation just around the corner. I don't know if she could bear it if anything were to happen to him. How could you do this? How could you not stop him? You just stood there and watched him die. How could you be so cruel? People gradually began to gather around, while Ling's mother sat on the ground, clutching her chest and wailing loudly. My son dated her for all those years and took care of her for so long. And then she just ran off on her own, leaving my son behind. A reporter standing next to her set up a camera to film me, and several passers-by raised their phones to capture the moment. I could just imagine how many people, unaware of the truth, would call me an ungrateful person once that video went online. But just then, a bloodstained stretcher was carried in through the door, and Ling's mother, who had been slumped on the floor just moments before, sprang to her feet and rushed over. There stood Ling Jing, covered in blood, with gauze tightly wrapped around his mangled arm, through which large patches of mangled flesh were faintly visible. Are you out of your mind? Why on earth would you go save someone? If anything happens to you, how am I supposed to go on living? Her desperate cries echoed through the entire floor of the hallway. Yet Ling Jing smiled pale-faced. I saved Qiuqiu. I saved Qiuqiu. As long as Qiuqiu is safe, I'll do anything. The expressions of the people around him all changed. Qiuqiu, you don't mean some other girl, do you? Didn't he date her for a long time? How come there's suddenly a Qiuqiu? Isn't that moral blackmail? Is your son's life the only one that matters? And everyone else's doesn't count? Seeing the tide of public opinion turning, Ling's mother didn't bother to explain. Her face went deathly pale as she fell backward, and she stopped babbling. It seemed this time she wasn't faking it. The medical staff rushed over to them in a panic, while I turned and walked into the examination room across the hall. Paying them no further attention, the test results were all normal. As I was leaving the hospital, I heard news about Ling Jing. Apparently, he had survived, but unfortunately, he had lost an arm and would need an amputation. In this life, the tables have turned. He is the one who has been hurt, and he is also the one who has saved his beloved. I hope that Yu Xiaoqiu will be able to walk the rest of the way with him without any trouble. I stood outside the ICU door, watching the flashing red light, and the face of Yu Xiaoqiu from my past life came to mind. As the walls shook and everyone rushed outside, Yu Xiaoqiu clutched his phone, his tone resolute. Hurry up and tell me you love me, or I'll die right here. I won't run away. Shui Yi, if you don't agree, I won't go on living. I've seen her go through on-again, off-again relationships with that film major, and I've heard her snicker as she told her female friend, Ling Jing, I was just messing around with him. If I hadn't gotten serious, how would Shui Yi ever know what it feels like to be heartbroken? So I wanted to stop Ling Jing. I wanted to help him escape the misfortune that wasn't meant to be his. Even if it meant he developed secret feelings for someone else. Even if it meant he cast me aside ruthlessly for the sake of that person. But I still cherish our long-standing friendship. And to keep a clear conscience, I want to help him get out of this mess. But since he was determined to jump, then it was just as he said. Life and death are predestined. Wealth and honor are in the hands of heaven. It had already been a month since I last saw Ling Jing. His right hand, the one he was most proud of when playing basketball, had been amputated, leaving only a stump of his right arm. It was bandaged, making it difficult for him to move. Ling's mother looked as if she had aged 10 years overnight. Her voice kept going hoarse and then clearing up, only to go hoarse again, until she could barely make a sound. I brought a bouquet of flowers to meet him when he was discharged from the hospital and calmly told him that we were breaking up. Ling Jing didn't try to stop me, because while he was recovering, Yu Xiaoqiu had visited him many times. weeping and declaring her love for him, promising to stay with him for the rest of her life. I think this is a happy ending for all of us. After Ling Jing left, I stood there for a long time, staring blankly at his empty hospital room. This was where I had stayed in my previous life. Back then, I thought Ling Jing could save me, but now I realize that the only one who can save me is myself. Out of the corner of my eye, I looked down, expecting to see Ling Jing and Yu Xiaoqiu in a tender, intimate embrace, but instead I saw a petite girl in Shuiya's arms, the two of them gazing at me as they kissed passionately. My phone suddenly rang. Interrupting my observation, I picked it up and saw it was my mom calling. By the time she answered the phone, she looked down again to find that Ling Jing had already walked downstairs. Shuiyi was no longer standing beside Yu Xiaoqiu. Instead, Yu Xiaoqiu, clutching a bouquet of vibrant roses, threw herself into Ling Jing's arms, her face beaming with a happy smile. "Hey, Mom." I answered the phone, but my eyes never left the ground floor. Ling Jing was completely oblivious to what had just happened. He wanted to embrace Yu Xiaoqiu, but his arm, which was missing a section, struggled to lift itself. And in the end, he failed. "Gigi, where did you go?" Mom's voice sounded particularly urgent over the phone. In my previous life, she was heartbroken when I broke my leg. Yet she never once criticized Ling Jing. It was only after we were married that she mentioned to me in private on a few occasions that Ling Jing was a man of deep, hidden motives, and she wasn't sure if he was a good choice for me. But Ling Jing was always so deferential in front of her. And he was especially gentle with me, too. I even had a few arguments with her over it, telling her not to let her imagination run wild. It wasn't until after I was reborn that I realized it was an intuition born of love. I suppose if I had listened to her sooner, things might have turned out differently. "Don't worry, Mom. I've already said goodbye to Ling Jing." I softened my tone, but the moment I looked down, it felt as if an electric shock had run through my body. Not far away, Shuiyi stood with his hands in his pockets, gazing up at the sky from among the flowers. When our eyes met, a wry smile played on his lips. He held his index finger to his lips, making a gesture, his eyes flashing with a dangerous glint, as if warning me not to say a word. Actually, it's not surprising that someone like Yu Xiaoqiu has such a lively love life, even among the many beautiful women in the performing arts department. She stood out strikingly. Her long, deep-set eyes seemed to hold the entire galaxy, and when she looked at others, she possessed a mesmerizing charm. It is said that several well-known directors had already submitted scripts to Yu Xiaoqiu, but she turned them all down, saying she wanted to save her directorial debut for Shuiyi. Unfortunately, in her previous life, fate was not on her side. The face she had been so proud of was lacerated in an earthquake, leaving her completely disfigured. At that time, Ling Jing had left Muho was recovering from surgery to sneak off and visit Yu Xiaoqiu. But he was turned away every single time. He always believed that Yu Xiaoqiu was too ashamed to see him because of her disfigurement, and that she had taken her own life out of despair because I had forced him to marry me. Little did they know that on the day Yu Xiaoqiu jumped to his death, Shuiyi posted a photo of himself holding a girl's hand, their fingers intertwined, looking so sweet it made everyone else green with envy. Despite the 10 years of hardship I endured after losing my leg, I was still unable to make up for the slight blemish on Yu Xiaoqiu's otherwise flawless reputation in his eyes. He blamed me for all her suffering, not realizing that she had never taken him seriously from the very beginning. Back then, I was on the verge of despair. Looking back now, how was my so-called devotion any different from Ling Jing's reckless, one-sided infatuation? By the time I returned to school, most of it had already been rebuilt. With graduation approaching, everyone was sending out resumes. In his previous life, Ling Jing stood out in every way. With his handsome appearance, he quickly caught the attention of the HR representatives as he stood among the crowd. But now all he can do is sit in front of those obscure little companies and scrawl his name with his clumsy left hand. Although most of the companies didn't say anything outright, the looks they gave Ling Jing were now more sympathetic than admiring. He has now experienced the same despair I felt back then when I was met with nothing but cold indifference. Rongji. I'd like to ask you about your views on balancing career and family life. The interviewer in front of me was holding my resume and looking at me with interest. I understand that young single women always face some degree of skepticism when job hunting. I turned my head. Memories flashed through my mind, and after a moment, I spoke with conviction. I was born a mountain, not a stream. The interviewer looked taken aback for a moment, but after a brief pause, she broke into a smile and nodded gently. Okay, Rongji, one last question. You chose to be a wheelchair fencing coach. Could you tell us what makes that choice so meaningful? My hand, hanging down from the table, brushed against my right knee, and I slowly rotated my ankle. The joy of having regained what I had lost still lingered in my heart, refusing to fade. In my past life, I hit a wall time and time again, and I came to hate fencing, a sport I once loved with a passion. Every time I saw my old favorite fencing competition, I would go berserk and smash the TV. It wasn't until much later, when I had calmed down a bit, that I tried to learn about wheelchair fencing. The female coach I met at the time handed me a foil and said, "Even without legs, as long as I grow wings, I can still fly." Unfortunately, my physical abilities had already declined by then, making it very difficult to pursue my dream again. Now that I have the chance to start over, and now that I understand the pain that was inflicted upon me, I want more people to be able to share in the joy of life with me. Faster, higher, further for me. That's a matter of willpower. I believe that physical limitations should never stand in the way of a person's pursuit of their dreams. Those were the words my former female coach once said to me, and they've become my belated comfort. As the crowd was dispersing, I spotted Ling Jing and Yu Xiaoqiu standing beside him. She stood out strikingly, her voice sweet and delicate. Ling Jing, don't be afraid. It doesn't matter if you don't have a job. I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. Hearing that familiar exchange, I smiled softly. Let me ask a friend to hook you up with a job, one that's not too tiring and pays well. I don't need you to introduce me. I don't believe there isn't a company that would hire me. Xiaoqiu. Give me some time. Trust me. Yu Xiaoqiu clearly didn't like Ling Jing. She treated him with care and consideration, likely because she didn't want to be criticized or vilified by the world. But how could a prodigy like Ling Jing possibly tolerate or accept a girl's charity? To this day, he still insists he has a chance to make something of himself. But skipping an exam to accompany Yu Xiaoqiu to a competition has left a glaring stain on his academic record. Not to mention that physical recovery is a long process. Ling Jing has already lost the head start he had when he first entered the industry in his previous life. To reach the heights he achieved then, he will likely have to put in 1,000 or even 10,000 times more effort. I walked past the two of them without turning my head, but as I passed by, I clearly heard Ling Jing's voice had deliberately raised it. Xiaoqiu, I'll make you happy. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him turn and wrap his arm around her waist, his gaze drifting casually in my direction. I pretended not to hear him and didn't turn around. In my mind, I could still see that 18-year-old boy standing outside my building, waiting for me all night, clutching a can of stars, and hesitantly saying to me, "Qin Rongji, we both got into the same university. Can we be together? I promise I'll make you happy." When I close my eyes, the willow trees shedding their fluff and the boy's sweat-stained white shirt still seemed to be right before me. We struggled so hard to be together, yet in the end, we were defeated by time. GG. A sweet voice interrupted my thoughts. Su Linyue came skipping over from a distance and ran straight into my arms. "For our graduation play, why don't you be my co-star?" Su Linyue and I met in a club, a film directing major from a well-off family. She's just waiting to go abroad for further studies after graduation. Having been free of worries since she was young, her biggest concern now is the school's graduation requirement. Producing a short film as her final project. I put my arm around her and nodded in agreement. Perhaps because she was worried I'd be upset about the breakup, she, whether intentionally or not, stood to my right, blocking Ling Jing and Yu Xiaoqiu from view. Ling Jing's mother came to the school a couple of days ago and gave Yu Xiaoqiu a real hard time. She kept saying that she was a member of the Ling family in life and would be a ghost of the Ling family in death. And that Yu Xiaoqiu had better hurry up and give her a grandson. Anyone would lose it with a mother-in-law like that. As she spoke, she kept stealing glances at my face, as if she were afraid I might be upset. Yeah. Ling Jing and I have broken up. And I don't want to hear anything more from him. I'm at a major turning point in my life. And there are plenty of things more important than so-called love. I don't want someone who will never have anything to do with me again to interfere in my life. That was my own punishment. Su Linhua's play is based on a real-life female principal from a remote mountain area. And I play one of the girls who is pressured by her family to get married and is forced to give up her education. It wasn't until rehearsal that I realized we were in the space next to Shui Ye's. And the female lead in Shui Ye's production was none other than Yu Xiaoqiu. The two of them were together every day. And their relationship was clearly more than just friends. Half the school had heard the rumors. But because of Shui Ye's family background, no one dared to say anything. The company Ling Jing had applied to had initially given some positive feedback. But for some reason, all communication suddenly went silent. He had no choice but to accept Yu Xiaoqiu's arrangement and used his connections to get a job at a company. Reportedly, the salary was quite substantial. But this also means that from now on, he will have to take a back seat and become the very kind of crony he used to despise the most. Based on my past experience, he should be undergoing rehabilitation right now. That's the most agonizing period following an amputation, constantly coming to terms with the changes in his body and repeatedly confronting his deepest, most painful wounds. Ling Jing's emotions began to fluctuate. And he needed Yu Xiaoqiu's companionship to fill the void in his heart. But Yu Xiaoqiu's mind was nowhere near him. To ensure she looked her best on camera, she had to go to bed early and wake up early, maintaining a regular schedule. Perhaps because she was completely immersed in the joy of love, she had grown even more beautiful. During breaks in rehearsal, I often heard her say impatiently into her phone, "I told you I'm busy. We have a meeting tonight, so I can't go with you." Sometimes, when Ling Jing came to see her, she would make up an excuse to leave and then ask someone nearby to take care of things. "Don't tell him I'm here." On Valentine's Day, Ling Jing came to see Yu Xiaoqiu with a bouquet of flowers. But Yu Xiaoqiu was busy rehearsing and didn't even acknowledge him. In front of everyone, Ling Jing couldn't help but lose his temper. He slammed the bouquet down on the ground and demanded coldly, "Yu Xiaoqiu, I called you so many times and you didn't answer. What are you playing at?" While everyone stood there in stunned silence, Yu Xiaoqiu didn't give him a friendly look. Relying on her beauty, she was used to bossing the boys around and had never had to put up with such treatment. So she immediately shot back, "Ling Jing, I'm busy. Normal people have a lot to do every day, unlike you, who has all the free time in the world." She emphasized the words "normal person," which clearly struck a nerve with Ling Jing. He stood there dumbfounded, so enraged he could barely speak. "Yu Xiaoqiu, don't you have a heart? Who do you think I've become like this for? Have you no shame? I didn't ask you to save Met Hat, was just your own delusion. I might have been fine even if you hadn't come. Why do you expect me to be at your beck and call? Don't forget who gave you this job. I don't owe you anything." Ling Jing was so flustered and exasperated by her retort that, in his agitation, he instinctively reached out to point at Heronly to find his sleeve flapping empty in the air. And he nearly tripped over the chair in front of him. From a distance, I looked at Ling Jing, the boy whom our teacher had once called a genius, as he stood there dejected among the crowd, enduring silent humiliation and deceit. Unable to bear the sight, I lowered my gaze. Only after losing something does a person learn to cherish it. Otherwise, it is impossible to truly understand. Just like Yu Xiaoqiu, who has always been protected, she will never know what would have become of her without Ling Jing. Just like Ling Jing will never know that if I hadn't stopped him, he would be in the situation he's in now. So just as he didn't thank me back then, Yu Xiaoqiu doesn't thank him now. The rehearsal schedule was disrupted that day. So after everyone else had left, I stayed behind to keep practicing the moves. In the short film, I play a martial arts actor who has come down from the mountains and is supposed to perform a fencing routine at the end of the movie. But since I've just been reborn, My movements are still rusty, so I'm practicing over and over again. Then the stage lights went out, and as I thrust my sword forward in the dim light, I suddenly noticed a blurry dark figure sitting in the audience. Who? I was startled, and the sword nearly slipped from my hand. You're amazing. It's Shui Yi. He raised an eyebrow. His jet-black pupils looked ghostly. Ling Jing isn't good enough for you. I thought he had come to warn me not to speak out of turn, so I brought up the matter myself. I won't tell anyone about what happened between you and Yu Xiaoqiu. He chuckled, his features softening, and approached me with a hint of tipsy haze. Yu Xiaoqiu isn't right for the part. I want a leading lady like Yosha's too delicate, whereas you're as tough as wild grass. I caught a whiff of alcohol mixed with cologne on him, frowned, and took a couple of steps back. Shui Yi considered himself a great artist, and since his family was quite extraordinary, he was always up to no good, chasing after women. Those girls may have had their own agendas, so they silently endured his harassment. But I gave him a cold look and took 2 steps back. Who I'm with is my own business. It has nothing to do with you. I took off my stage costume and was about to leave, but Shui Yi caught up with me and grabbed my sleeve. Qin Rongji. Has anyone ever told you that you're really different? If we end up together, do you think Ling Jing will be heartbroken? Would you want to see him come back and try to win you over? I admit that, for a split second, I did feel a flutter of excitement. But I quickly suppressed that thought. I don't need a man's pursuit to prove my appeal, nor do I need a man's regret to prove that I'm good enough. My perfection doesn't need any man or woman to make it shine. I don't want anything to do with Ling Jing anymore. If you bother me again, I'll make everything I know public, and that won't do you any good. I coldly took off my costume and turned to walk out of the theater. After that day, Ling Jing and Yu Xiaoqiu began a cold war. He stopped coming to the theater to see her and stopped showing up at school with her. He thought this was a punishment for Xiaoqiu, but he never imagined that this was exactly what she had been hoping for. On my birthday, Su Linyue organized a celebration for me with the entire crew. While we were at the restaurant that day, I received a text message with no sender's name. Happy birthday, Azzy. That name instinctively made me think of Ling Jing. That's how he addressed me in the first love letter he wrote to me when he was 17. But without a moment's hesitation, I pressed the delete key. As I left the restaurant, I was surrounded by a crowd as we walked back to school. I was a little tipsy, and the boy walking beside me tried several times to reach out and steady me, but each time he hesitated and let his hand drop. I saw it, but didn't say a word. As I walked under the streetlight, I saw a tall, slender figure standing there looking lonely. The boy beside me noticed him first and quietly moved a little further away. AG. Ling Jing's voice was extremely restrained, but his emotional turmoil was still evident. Happy birthday. After a very brief exchange, I nodded. Thank you. He was holding a handful of ugly paper stars in his left hand. It's not folded right. Every time he takes a step forward, I take a step back. The howling wind blew in, scattering paper confetti all over the ground, but none of us bent down to pick them up. I'm going to Beijing to get a prosthetic limb. There was a hint of hurt in his voice. During the 4 years we were together, I was there for every major milestone in his life. Through all his difficult times, I was always by his side. During his sophomore year, he fell off his bike and injured his arm. Blood stained his shirt red, but he still silently held out the birthday cake he'd prepared for me. Yet the moment I rolled up his sleeves, the boy who was a head taller than me pouted and began to sob, tears streaming down his face. That once arrogant boy looked utterly dejected in front of me. But now, during this difficult time, I will never be there for him again. Good luck. There was not a trace of a smile on my face as I coldly uttered those words. Azzy. How could you be so cruel to me? Can't we even be friends anymore? A few people standing nearby looked over from a distance, their eyes filled with questioning. I raised my eyes and stared intently at him. Ling Jing. Don't call me Thaturi not worthy. You think your old feelings have been rekindled, but in reality, It's just you're longing for a little warmth from me after being abandoned and neglected. But you should know that someone like me cannot tolerate even the slightest betrayal. The moment you insisted on pushing me away, you should have realized that we can never be friends. Ling Jing. Don't even think about using your so-called devoted lover act to manipulate me. Life and death are in the hands of fate, and wealth and honor are in the hands of heaven. That's your choice, so you'll have to live with the consequences yourself. I smiled at him, then turned and walked over to my friends, and we all walked off into the distance together. The days leading up to graduation always fly by, as we rehearsed day after day. A month had passed before we knew it. Shui started sending me expensive gifts every now and then, sometimes a ring from a luxury brand tucked inside a backpack. Other times a limited edition dress that was hard to come by. I know this isn't exactly love at first sight. It's just a game Shui plays to pass the time when he has nothing better to do. I didn't have time to think about it, because I had already received an offer from the provincial team coach and was starting my coaching career. As planned, I was set to begin training the newly formed fencing team, and in 3 months, I would be leading them to an important competition. On Yu Xiaoqiu's birthday, Ling Jing suddenly returned. He came with his mother, wearing his newly fitted prosthetic arm, and had deliberately chosen this day to show up unannounced, probably hoping to break the ice and give Yu Xiaoqiu a surprise. Ling's mother came to me on her own to say these things. After going through such a major upheaval, she looked much more haggard and was especially kind to me. Gee, Xiao Jing is like a kid who never grew up, always causing trouble. You've known him for so many years. You understand him. Sometimes, when he acts on impulse, he does some extreme things, but deep down, he's very loyal. After we got married in our previous life, she had said things like that to other women on several occasions. The implication was clear. Hearing that now definitely makes me feel sick. No one is a child forever. He's a grown man, and he should take responsibility for his actions. As for whether he's nostalgic or not, that's none of my business. He has a girlfriend now, so you should go talk to her. I was about to leave after I finished speaking, but Ling's mother stopped me. Auntie really cares about you and wants to bring you two together. Otherwise, as you know, he's getting along well with that girl he's with now, and he's even found a job. To be blunt, if Xiao Jing hadn't lost an arm, you wouldn't have had a chance. Whenever she talks about her son, she still speaks with pride. It seems Ling Jing hasn't told his mother about any of the incidents, like using his connections to find a job or arguing with Yu Xiaoqiu. Ling's mother didn't really like me either. She just thought Yu Xiaoqiu wasn't reliable enough, so she wanted me to take over this mess. I've had my share of dealing with how difficult she was in her past life, but I'm actually a bit curious to see what kind of sparks will fly when this crown prince's mother, who can't stand the slightest injustice, and that spoiled rich girl Yu Xiaoqiu come face to face. Then I'll just wish them luck. Okay. May they have a long and happy marriage. You don't need to go to all that trouble to bring us together. I am not worthy of your precious son. Ling's mother snorted coldly, grabbed her backpack, and stormed off. But the moment her hand came within inches of my face, I noticed that her 10 fingers were as round as drumsticks, clear signs of clubbing. It seemed her heart condition was already quite serious. So I immediately stopped talking, afraid that anything too harsh might upset her. Mom, come on, let's go find Xiaoqiu. The moment she opened the door, Ling Jing's voice drifted in from the hallway. Next came a group of people chatting and laughing merrily. I closed the door and crouched down to quietly organize the props. Su Linyue said that Ling Jing had booked a large banquet hall. So many people from both film crews had gone over to join the fun. Naturally, I wasn't going to attend, so I packed up my things and left. Now that I have to go to the provincial team every day to oversee training, I naturally don't have time to listen to the news. However, as I approached the school gate, I saw an ambulance rushing in, and groups of students running toward the auditorium. Hurry up! Hurry up! I heard a senior in the performing arts department was caught cheating by her boyfriend. I heard the rest of the story from Su Linyue. She said that on that day, a crowd of people, led by Ling Jing and his mother, eagerly pushed open the door to the dressing room, only to find Yu Xiaoqiu and Shui Yi in each other's arms. their clothes disheveled, citing classical texts. She told me, the two of them were so engrossed in their lovemaking that they had no idea what was going on around them. Seeing this scene, Ling Jing froze in place, unable to utter a single word. Ling's mother was so furious her face turned pale. She lunged forward, grabbed Yu Xiaoqiu by the hair, and tried to strike her, but Yu Xiaoqiu kicked her in the solar plexus, sending her crashing to the ground. Ling Jing also rushed over to help and got into a scuffle with Shui Yi. All of this was captured by people in the crowd who were holding cameras, hoping to film it as a surprise. I waved my hand to signal that I didn't want to hear any more. But Su Linyue continued. It wasn't over yet. During the scuffle, Sumanino One knows who knocked Yu Xiaoqiu to the ground, and when she fell, there was actually a pool of blood. I was completely taken aback. I choked on a mouthful of water. I heard Yu Xiaoqiu was already 3 months pregnant, but now she's lost the baby. I wonder how they'll handle things in the end. If I do the math, Ling Jing and Yu Xiaoqiu haven't even been together for 3 months. I wonder how Ling Jing will feel when he hears this news. Ling Jing's mom is in the hospital too. I heard she had a heart attack and nearly didn't make it through resuscitation. She's still in the ICU. GG. You're so lucky. You did the right thing breaking up with Ling Jing back then. Don't get involved in their mess. You're a lucky one. It's only because Ling Jing is with you that things have gone so smoothly for you. Too bad he doesn't know how to appreciate it deserves to end up in this situation. Su Linyue continued to speak with great enthusiasm. Her words were a bit extreme, but I knew she was completely standing up for me. Okay. Yeah. Let's not talk about Ling Jing anymore. He's just an ordinary guy I've known for a while now. Let me show you the young girl from our team the day before yesterday. Look how beautifully she performs the moves. I pulled out my phone. The screen showed a girl who had lost both legs to Polly. Oh, holding a sword high and delivering a beautiful thrust to the throat of her opponent. Before coming to training, she had almost given in to her parents and married a deaf-mute man she had never met. But the skill gave her the courage to say no to the family members who had been bullying her. GG. You're amazing. Su Linyue's eyes welled up with tears, and she gave me a tight hug. When I become a director someday, I'll definitely turn your story into a movie. The final exams are just around the corner. Su Linyue's short film was a great success. At the end, a group of girls clasped hands and recited aloud, "I am a mountain." Amid the recitations, I put on my fencing uniform and demonstrated my fencing skills on stage. I wished to stand atop the peaks and look down upon the valleys of mediocrity. Amid the fluttering hem of her skirt, I seemed to see a speeding car and a woman sitting helplessly in a wheelchair, her eyes brimming with tears as she moaned in despair. Help me. Who can help me? Across a gulf of time and space that can never be bridged. I answered her question. I'm here to save you. I can save you. So the traffic quieted down. My swollen belly subsided, and I grew legs again to stand up, dragging myself to safety through the billowing dust. Having been reborn, I'm going to take good care of myself. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. I saw Ling Jing sitting among the crowd, weeping uncontrollably. The first person to stand up and present flowers was, surprisingly, Shui Yi. I saw him walk up to me, holding a bouquet of roses so large it almost completely obscured him. Qin Rongji. You look so beautiful today. It was written in bright letters right in the center of the bouquet. Qin Rongji. I like you. But I didn't answer. In the end, Su Linyue, as the organizer, accepted the bouquet on my behalf and politely thanked him. Thank you for your support. As I was packing my bags in the back room, I noticed a figure standing in the doorway, staring straight at me. When I turned around, it was Ling Jing. He walked over and struggled to open his arms to me. GG. Graduation is coming up. Can I give you a hug? We both know that once this period is over, we will never have the chance to see each other again. When I saw the mechanical arm peeking out from his sleeve, I couldn't help but soften a little. AG. I hope you'll be happy. His voice choked up. In this new life. Those words had somehow become something he said to me. It turns out that fate can be a cruel joke. But the twists and turns of destiny are, in a way, quite intriguing. If only you had stopped me when I rushed in back then, I would have realized my mistake. Chin Romji. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Ling Jing's lips trembled slightly. He lowered his head, and tears fell helplessly to the ground. I laughed. Ling Jing. A person who dares to do something but won't own up to it is a coward. If you don't regret it, I might still have a little respect for you. You don't need my forgiveness, because I don't matter to you, and you don't matter to me either. It's a blessing for both of us that we'll never see each other again in this lifetime. I packed my things and left the rehearsal room. This time, all my dark past should be over for good. After leaving school, I rarely kept up with what those people were doing. Lian Ling's mother nearly bled to death during her surgery and almost didn't make it off the operating table. Yu Xiaoqiu went to the Ling family home and caused a huge scene. And after Ling Jing lost his job, he couldn't afford the medical bills and had to borrow money from his classmate Su Linyue told me all of this later. Only Shui Yi kept sending me messages over and over again. He sent me greetings almost non-stop, telling me he had broken up with Yu Xiaoqiu and asking if I wanted to be the leading lady in his movie. I've never responded to him. In my view, men who try to force others to comply by relying on so-called money and power don't have that domineering boss charm theory actually quite repulsive. I've been busy coaching the team members for the competition. And I've been running around non-stop all day, with the competition just 10 days away. I led the team on a bus ride to the venue. Since parasports often require more time to acclimate to the venue, I was particularly anxious during the trip, fearing that any mishap might lead to problems during the competition. However, that very evening after arriving at the hotel, I received a sudden call from Su Linyue. Gigi, have you checked the trending topics yet? She spoke hurriedly, hung up the phone, and sent a video. The video shows Ling's mother yelling at me in the hospital on the day of the earthquake. It had been edited to start and end at specific points, focusing only on the part where she accused me of standing by and doing nothing while people were dying. A clip of my indifferent expression was edited and blown up into a meme with the caption "His life or death is none of my business." My identity was subsequently exposed, and my entire competition team was also exposed. Netizens who were unaware of the facts posted heated comments. How can someone who can't even save the people closest to them be expected to show compassion toward people with disabilities? Is she doing this on purpose? After all, she's a coach for the Paralympics. Won't she be happy to have more athletes with disabilities? I suggest disqualifying them from the competition. Does a team led by such a shameless coach even deserve to compete? The online attacks shifted from targeting me to targeting the entire team, and then turned against members of my own team. Did you offend someone? How did this video just happen to show up at such a convenient time? It's obvious they're targeting you. Su Linyue's words brought me back to my senses. I immediately opened Weibo and found the original video. Under the original poster's repost, I spotted a familiar profile picture. The reason it left such a strong impression was precisely because, in his previous life, Shui Yi had used that profile picture to post the update that drove Yu Xiaoqiu to the brink of despair. It's Shui Yi. The moment those words left my mouth, I shuddered violently. Given Shui Yi's family's prominent status, the fact that he would resort to such a despicable tactic to manipulate public opinion made his intentions all too clear. Just as I was feeling flustered, an unknown number called my cell phone. Chin Romji, have you seen the trending topics? Even though he was using a voice changer, I still recognized Shui Yi's voice. What do you want? Give up your coaching position and come join the team, or else it won't just be your reputation that suffers. I know a way to keep your entire team from competing. After a long silence, I sat alone in the pitch-black room, lost in thought. Shui Yi has always been a bit of a wild card. If I refuse him, it's hard to imagine how out of control things might get. This is a critical time for everyone, and I don't want my personal grudge to derail the competition that everyone has been working so hard to prepare for. But I also care deeply about my own feelings. This is a project I've been looking forward to for a long time, and a role I believe I'm capable of handling. I don't want to give it up easily. Gigi, have you thought about where the video came from? Su Linyue's remark reminded me. That day, I tried to recall the moment. My memory was a bit fuzzy, but apart from Ling Jing and his mother, there didn't seem to be anyone else there whom I knew well. It's been so long since that happened. Unless someone close to me deliberately leaked the information, no one would have thought to use it as a threat. So who exactly is this person? After a moment's thought, I dialed Ling Jing's cell phone number. AG. The other person spoke first, sounding urgent. I didn't post the video. His frantic attempts to cover it up only made me more suspicious. It's your mom, isn't it? After asking that question, I felt a sudden pang in my heart. When the other person didn't reply for a long time, I already knew the answer. AG. I'm sorry. She's in this state now. I can't blame her for anything anymore. I'm willing to take full responsibility for the consequences. I'll explain right now. I'll lay out the whole story clearly. Okay. I let out a cold laugh. In what capacity should he explain himself? And how could he prove his identity? By the time he had a chance to set the record straight, irreparable consequences might already have occurred. What about the full video? Can you find the full video? At this point, the quickest and most effective way to put an end to the online debate is to release Ling Jing's full explanation from the video. The video was bought by Shui Yi. He paid off all our medical bills. So right now, he's probably the only one who has the right to release it. I used to love Ling Jing's voice so much, but now it sounds so cold and indifferent. The phone slipped out of my hand and fell to the ground. The provincial team urgently contacted my superior, and the head coach called me. When I answered, I expected to be scolded, but he spoke to me with unusual gentleness. GG. Don't worry, we're working on it. The memory of that day at the interview venue came to mind involuntarily, when I said to her, physical limitations should not stand in the way of pursuing one's dreams. The members of my team have already been through so much. For many of them, this competition is the only chance they'll ever get in life. If they don't win a prize and qualify for the national competition, they'll have no choice but to go home and get married. This isn't just my dream, it's all of theirs, too. Do I really want Shui Yi to ruin everything? Sister Xiaoyu, just put the blame on me. I'll step down as coach so the kids can compete normally. Let's figure something out after the game. But I know that once I choose to compromise, it will be a stain on my career. And it will be incredibly difficult to make up for it later. But my own situation is already so dire, let alone my team members. They've already exhausted every ounce of courage just to get this far. And I can't let myself become an obstacle to them. I quickly packed my things and called Su Linyue. Yeah. Where are you? I'm coming to find you. But before I could finish speaking, Su Linyue let out a scream. GG. There's been a twist. Check out the trending topics. News that the full video had been released quickly made headlines. Ling Jing's tearful explanation in the video and the passers-by's accusations against him were all made public, causing public opinion to shift abruptly and focus instead on the connection between Ling Jing and this mysterious figure known as Qiu Qiu. Within less than half an hour, the trending topics were completely removed. The entire process was swift and decisive. In tandem with this, a trivial entertainment story was quickly pushed to the top of the headlines. I certainly don't believe that there's no one pulling the strings behind this. It occurred to me that once Yu Xiaoqiu's true identity was exposed, it wouldn't be difficult to track down Shui Yi. So I suppose Shui Yi didn't want the situation to escalate any further. However, I still don't know who managed to hit the mark with the single strike and evade Shui Yi's plan to release the full video. After that incident, Shui Yi never contacted me again. With preparations for the competition in full swing, everything that has happened seems to be nothing more than a minor hiccup along the way. Things went particularly smoothly from there on out. The team I led fought its way through the provincial competition, performing exceptionally well, with the top 3 spots in the entire competition all going to my team. The girls smiled brightly in front of the flickering lights, to the tune of Stars and the Sea. They pushed their wheelchairs and held each other tightly. But it was precisely because of that minor hiccup before the competition that even more people took an interest in the event. The girl who had come from the mountains won the championship, and soon several advertising agencies reached out to her. promising to cover all her future training expenses. Amid the cheers and applause of the crowd, I received a phone call. The moment I pressed the dial button, an unexpected voice rang in my ear. Chin Romji. You're really amazing. The voice sounded distant yet familiar, instantly transporting my memories back to my past life. In that dimly lit hospital room, a television on the wall was showing a live news broadcast. At that time, I was suffering from severe insomnia. I couldn't sleep for nights on end, and I was on the verge of a breakdown, feeling utterly hopeless. One evening, as I lay half reclined on my bed listening to an interview in which a female reporter's firm yet gentle voice was reading a brief news item, I was suddenly overcome by a sense of peaceful drowsiness. Later, during those difficult days, I got used to letting that voice lull me to sleep. It wasn't until that day, when her face appeared in the breaking news, that they reported a journalist covering the aftermath of the disaster had fallen to her death from the 17th floor of a hospital. The official cause of death was given as suicide due to despair after being traumatized by witnessing too many injured victims during the earthquake. The program featured clips from interviews she gave during her lifetime. In every one of them, her reassuring tone was firm and uplifting. I don't know what exactly happened to her that caused her to suddenly fall to her death overnight. I just feel that there's something vaguely off about the whole situation. Hearing that voice again now, my eyes welled up in an instant. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop. Did you post the full video? The woman standing before him was named Chen Jing. Her round face gradually began to overlap with the image from the corner of the camera lens on the day she had been dragged away by Ling's mother. I am so relieved that such a tragedy did not befall her in this lifetime. It's me. Her voice was still as beautiful as ever, soft and gentle, like a babbling stream flowing through my heart. Why are you helping me? Since Shui Yi was able to use such evidence to threaten me back then, he must have ensured that all the key evidence was in his possession. And to achieve that, he likely relied on one of two things: money or power. As a journalist, I'm sure I'd be eager to use the evidence I have to gain access to Shui Yi's connections and resources in the media industry. Even if that weren't the case, there's no need to risk offending him just to help me out. My daughter is paralyzed. She lowered her head slightly, her eyes reddening as she began to speak. On the day of the earthquake, we had planned to go to the park together, but I had to go out on a last-minute assignment. So I left her and my husband at home. Later, she had both legs broken when a stone pillar fell on her. What about your husband? She gave a faint smile. He was staying in a hotel room downstairs with someone else. I only found out about it later. The hospital where she fell in her previous life came to mind, and I suspected that was likely where her daughter was being treated. My daughter loves to dance. Her teacher says she's very talented and wants to recommend her to the best dance school. Her voice choked up. She's still so young, how could she possibly handle all this? She was very resistant to treatment and hadn't been doing well at all, until she looked up at me. During the post-disaster reconstruction, I attended your school's fall recruitment event. I heard what you said, and I shared your words with my daughter and even showed her a video of wheelchair fencing. She cried for a long time that night, and the next morning she told me, "Mom, I can still dance even in a wheelchair." She also gave me her already written suicide note. I looked up at her in surprise, my mouth forming and now without my realizing it. If it weren't for you, she might have died. If she weren't here, I don't know what would give me the courage to go on living. The black and white photos from my past life still seemed to be right before my eyes. My heart gave a sudden jolt. I never realized so much had happened without my knowing it. This is an ending I never could have imagined. Shui Yi contacted me and offered an exorbitant sum for a video, but I told him the camera had malfunctioned that day and I didn't have any footage. Her daughter was undergoing treatment for a serious illness, and she was also in the midst of a divorce battle with her ex-husband. These mounting difficulties meant she was in desperate need of a large sum of money. She never mentioned these hardships, but I knew about them. If it weren't for you, I don't know what I'd be like. If one were to accept 10,000 measures of grain without considering propriety and righteousness, what good would 10,000 measures of grain do me? She looked up at me, and her words were as forceful as ever. I even blamed myself at one point. thinking I wasn't good enough to keep my husband, which is why my daughter suffered this tragedy. But you're right, we are mountains, not streams. Why should we stop because of a tiny ravine? What I should do is make him pay for this. If your story absolutely has to feature a savior with a twist ending, I hope she's a woman. We aren't just fools who fight tooth and nail over men. Our swords can also be aimed at those cowards. She left those words behind and walked out. Just as the entertainment news broke, I was attending the fencing team's victory party. This time, it was Shui Yi who reached the summit. What was leaked was precisely that explosive news footage shot on Yu Xiaoqiu's birthday. In the video, the two disheveled figures hurriedly pull apart, followed by Ling Jing, who is holding a bouquet of flowers and looking utterly bewildered. The relationship between the three individuals was repeatedly discussed and escalated, eventually sparking a public outcry. I don't know how Chen Jing got this video from Shui Yi's close friend, but I do know that those who betray others will eventually be betrayed themselves. And those who come together for profit will eventually drift apart when the profit runs out, such as the cycle of the universe. Yu Xiaoqiu's acting career hit a major setback right at the start. Netizens compared her to the girl in the video and had to look closely for quite a while before they could confirm it was her. It wasn't until I saw a recent photo of her that I realized the stunning beauty I had once admired had lost her former radiance. Seeing that there was no turning back, her agent also went public, stating that since her breakup, Yu Xiaoqiu had undergone plastic surgery repeatedly as if she had lost her mind. After several botched procedures, her naturally beautiful features were completely gone, and in her early 20s, her face had become so stiff and unnatural that it was unrecognizable. Without that face, she had become nothing more than a sacrificial pawn used to draw fire. Her reputation in tatters. Even that one thing she had once said to her best friend in private, Ling Jing. I was just messing around with him. If I hadn't gotten serious, how would Shui Yi have known what it feels like to be heartbroken? This was also revealed. I don't know if Ling Jing follows entertainment news, nor do I know how he'll feel when he hears this voice message. The whole affair ultimately came to an end when it was revealed that the investors backing Shui Yi had been evading taxes. Reportedly, that hypocritical bigwig had been having a string of extramarital affairs, which were eventually exposed by his ex-wife. Now, he faces the full force of the law. We will continue to monitor further developments. This is Chen Jing reporting for our station. Just as the news was ending, a familiar voice rang out. The woman's eyes crinkled slightly at the corners, and her tone was so light and melodious. Yet there was a sense of detachment, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. It had been many years since I last saw Su Linyue. After returning from studying abroad, she worked hard to prove herself in the film industry to avoid her family pressuring her to get married, and before she knew it, she had become a renowned director. She came to me and said that a movie based on my life was already in the works. Their class in the directing program produced many talented individuals, but Shui Yi, who was once the most renowned among them, ended up with a tragic fate. Today, no one in the industry even knows where he is, proving that he has been completely forgotten by the world. Su Linyue asked me if there were any lines I wanted to keep, so I wrote one down for her. Many years ago, there was a man who had given up on himself. He told me, life and death are predestined. Wealth and honor are in the hands of heaven. But what I want to tell you is that as long as you refuse to accept defeat, you can make it so that my destiny is in my own hands, not in the hands of heaven. I told Su Linyue that I wanted to use my first group of students as models for the shoot. That dark-skinned, skinny girl from back then has since become a Paralympic champion. Every year when she competes, she sends me a photo of herself, a girl who has shed her shyness and is beaming with joy. It was a beauty that rivaled Xiao Qiu's a beauty brimming with vitality. I've taught many students, and Su Linyue invited most of them to attend this performance. Those girls said, I'm a savior. I've saved many people who had given up on themselves. I unexpectedly empathized with them and gave many people the courage to go on living. But no one knows that. In fact, my original intention was simply to save myself. But when I wake up in the middle of the night, I hear those words again from the woman in the wheelchair. She said, I am all of you. When a person is saving themselves, when they are striving to love themselves, They radiate a courage they never even imagined they possessed. This is the kind of strength the world needs. It is the greatest value that allows a person to take center stage. And I'm so glad that, this time, I've become the protagonist of my own world.